It's Thursday. Welcome to the Little Nessie Happy Hour with Ron and Dave. Ron, we always start with the cheers since it's happy hour. So cheers to you, fine sir. Happy Thursday.
Cheers. Good morning, everybody.
My mom told me that she reprimanded me for not including McKenna in the cheers. So McKenna, cheers. You don't have to come on camera yet. But
I try to make cheers with us every week.
Welcome to the Little Nessie Happy Hour podcast. We typically go live 4 hours from now on Thursdays, but I've got some weekend plans. A fun trip to Virginia planned and headed up there today. But if you're tuning in, welcome. Ron and I go live every week, typically on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. A little bit different today, but we've got people joining the show already, so welcome. So whether you're here now or watching this later, we appreciate you. If you would, anytime we post any links to some of the stuff we're talking about, we typically put that on our YouTube channel, so links and that kind of thing. So if you want the full benefit of what I'll say pretty much what Ron talks about, because he's the insightful one. I'm just the dumb one that comes along with questions. But head to the Little Nessie YouTube channel. That's where you'll get the most out of it. But Ron and I are going to chat for about an hour. We've got some beefy topics, some light topics, but we're going to chat for about an hour. Ron and I have been in the housing real estate industry collectively, I think, for about 35 years. Me about 17 or so. Ron, you're over 20, right?
26.
26. Okay, so about 40. Yeah, over 40 years in the housing and mortgage world. But Ron has a different brain than I do. I've got a marketing and branding background. Ron has pretty much everything else. From the ops side, from the sales side. I don't know why you're laughing, Ron, but the ops side, the sales side, the leadership, executive side, the owning side, and so on. So, Ron, you look like you want to say something.
No, I was laughing because you're completely convicted on that. Whenever we talk about marketing or media, you're like, hey, Ron, stay your lane.
Well, that's what I said. I said I'm the marketing and branding guy, and I said Ron's everything else. But we're gonna have a good time. We always have some banter, and McKenna, our show producer, she's in her mid-20s, and we like to get her perspective sometimes. Even though she hasn't owned a home yet in her life, she's getting to that age where that might become reality sometimes. So we like to bring McKenna on and get her perspective from a younger generation. So you'll see her throughout the show. Usually she's just drinking beer and giving Ron a hard time, but we'll have fun. But let's get into this week's topics. I typically start off with a little monologue that when I see something in the news or headlines or something like that, or sometimes I bring a story from my past, my career into it. But this week I'm talking about, and I've quite often done this, I'm talking about a YouTuber that I just recently started watching. He's a British guy, and as you can see from the thumbnail, he quite often has his mom and one or both of his sisters on the show. And I'm going to talk about how there is an audience for everything, regardless of, how good you think you are on camera. There is an audience for everything. So that'll be my little monologue, and I've got a little 1-minute video in there that's quite funny. And then Ron, lead the way on these main topics.
Yeah, we have a mix of topics, and I really like some of these topics. This first one, Love Expresses Capital, is really talking about the wealth transfer that's going to happen in the upcoming years. And right now, Carilli estimates out will be $124 trillion, trillion with a T. It's going to change hands by 2048.
And then our second main topic.
Yeah, this is talking about there's quite a few articles in the press, including the mainstream press, Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal, about housing now doing more and more risky loans, the non-QM loans. So we're gonna talk about that. This is a constant refrain. There was also quite a few articles this past week about how much better it is to rent than buy, and so we're gonna debate that again.
And then we have, I believe, 3 or maybe 4 rapid fire topics, which we get through pretty quickly, 3 to 4 minutes or so, and then we'll end with a tech tip of the week. But without further ado, let's get to today's From the Gut. Okay. So this week, I'm going to talk about a YouTuber, like I said, that most of you, and I would be shocked if any of you have ever heard of him. His name is Lewis Grant, but online his handle is L3WG. He's a young guy from the UK, and over the last couple of years, he's built a massive audience reacting to American culture. He has over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube alone, and if you don't know, that can be a full-time job for you with the ad revenue that comes in from that. But I'm pretty sure he's got millions of subscribers on other channels, on Twitch, on I'm not sure if he's on TikTok. I think so, but I quite often just watch or mostly listen to when I'm working doing mindless crap on my computer. I quite often just have YouTube playing just random videos. And if you didn't know, I'm originally from the UK. I moved to the US back in 1992. And probably the reason I found his videos interesting is because I have context of living in both the US and the UK. Now, when I say he reacts to American culture, I don't mean politics. I mean everything. American food, American homes, geography, sports, military history, American road trips, grocery stores. And honestly, that's where it gets funny. Now, for the most part, he came to the US, I think it was in December or January, but he's reacting to other people's reactions when they go to the US and the differences that they notice. But I started noticing a pattern in his videos. The things that absolutely blow his minds are the things that Americans don't even think about. Maybe the size of our houses or the size of our trucks that he always talks about, the size of our grocery stores, the fact that people drive 45 minutes to dinner and don't even think twice about it, the fact that some families have 3-car garages, or that high schools here in the US are sometimes bigger than entire towns in parts of Europe. Sometimes he'll watch a video and just stop dead in his tracks. And he's like, wait, what? And Americans in the comments, and I've read through quite a lot of them, they're funny. Americans in the comments are laughing because to us, these things that he's reacting to are completely normal. But to him, it looks insane. And we have the saying over here, everything's bigger than in Texas. But honestly, from a European's perspective, everything is bigger in the US, not just Texas. Now, before anyone takes this the wrong way, I don't think Lewis is dumb, not at all. I actually think he's pretty smart. The reason some of his observations seem funny is because he's looking at America from the outside. He's seeing it from a completely different lens. He's typically working from stereotypes, from assumptions, from things he's heard growing up, and things that simply don't exist where he lives. And a lot of people in the world do that. They see what's in American movies and TV shows and just come up with their stereotypes. We all do that. But every once in a while, he'll say something, and Americans immediately think that's not how it works at all. Or the comments let him know that. Trust me, the comments let him know that. He quite often has his mom and one or both of his sisters with him. And I've got a funny quick video here where they're debating about the Titanic and where it sank, and even which port of depart or where it set sail from, where it was headed. This video where he was reacting to a video of the geography of the United States. And this section of the video is them going over not his video, but the video that he's reacting to. They're going over sunken ships in and around the US. McKenna, go ahead and play that clip.
fog,
Did the
and sudden
Titanic
changes in
hit
water
an
depth.
iceberg near America? Was that America?
I don't know where it hit.
Yeah, I think it was America, wasn't it?
Well, no, they don't have icebergs. So
Oh, no.
it must have been near Antarctica.
No,
I think
where?
it set sail from America.
Yeah, it did set sail from America.
But-
Mom, you're just agreeing with anything.
No,
any
it
of
did
us
set
say.
sail from America. It did.
So where was the iceberg?
In the middle of the ocean.
No, it
They
wasn't.
all think it
actually.
set sail from America.
It was in the
Where
water.
was
It
it?
weren't.
Where was it then?
It was to the side, almost
It was-
by the shore.
It was
I don't know
to
where
the shore,
it
I
was
think.
set.
Went
I
to
don't know.
Iceland.
But all this water in America, I'm assuming it was America.
Mum just said, was it Iceland because it's got ice in the name?
So you can see their dynamic, and especially when he has his family on, and how it can be entertaining. Now that clip didn't shed them in the best light when they didn't even know Titanic set sail from England, because it's funny to watch them reacting to things that in their other videos where he's reacting to grocery stores. It's just funny to watching them react to stuff that you wouldn't really understand or get the perspective unless you lived here. Now, people correct him all the time. People tease him all the time. They tell him he's wrong. But the thing is, he just keeps on making videos. 500,000 YouTube subscriber, because he understands something that I think a lot of professionals struggle to understand. You don't have to be the world's leading expert to create content that people care about. And that's where I think this applies directly to mortgage and real estate. I've spent over 15 years in marketing now. Can't tell you how many conversations I've had with loan officers and real estate agents who won't post online because they don't feel qualified enough. They think, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I don't know as much as that person over there. What if someone corrects me? What if someone makes fun of me? And honestly, people probably will. That's the day and age of the internet that we live in today. The mortgage world is small and we all know each other. We're all connected with each other. And I constantly see loan officers comparing themselves to other loan officers, where they almost think that those other loan officers are their audience. Stop comparing yourself to other loan officers or other real estate agents. You're creating content for consumers, for buyers, for sellers, for people who don't spend all day thinking about mortgage and real estate. And even though 50 other loan officers might see your content because you're connected with them on Facebook or TikTok, they're still not your audience. It's the consumer. And that's a completely different audience, because the average home buyer doesn't need to know every guideline in the underwriting manual. They need help. They need someone who can explain things clearly. And I think that's where people get stuck. They compare themselves to top industry influencers or the conference speakers, the people with massive followings, and then they decide that they aren't ready. Meanwhile, Lewis, that I just showed you, built an audience of millions across all of his channels, reacting to things he didn't fully understand yet. Not because he was the expert, but because he was willing to be curious in public. And I think there's a lesson in that, because there's always going to be someone smarter than you. That's the standard. None of us should ever post anything if that's the standard. The reality is that people connect with different things. There's an audience for all of it. And honestly, that's one of the things social media has taught us over the last decade. You don't need everyone to care. You just need the right people to care. And I think that's why I enjoy Lewis's videos so much. Not because he's always right, not because he's an expert on America, but because he's willing to learn in public. He's willing to be curious in public. And most importantly, he's willing to be wrong in public. And that's something a lot of people never get comfortable doing. Now, I'm not advocating for loan officers not to care if they're wrong on something in a video that they put out. But the biggest thing holding most people back from creating content isn't a lack of knowledge. It's a fear of judgment, a fear of looking foolish, or a fear of someone leaving a comment and telling them they're wrong. And honestly, if a guy from the UK can build a massive audience asking Americans questions about grocery stores, pickup trucks, and college football, then maybe the rest of us can stop waiting until we feel perfectly qualified before we hit record. Ron, those are my thoughts.
That's awesome. It's so hard, David, because I want to talk all day about impressions Europeans have of us, but I know that would really not be your point.
You've learned a lot about that with your recent cruises, right?
Yeah, well, 100%. I spent quite a few weeks in Europe the last year, but one of the things they can't. I even told you I wasn't going to do this. One of the things they can't understand in America is how big our food portions are. In Europe, you get little teeny portions, and in America, you get these giant, portions. And in Europe, they don't have really take-home boxes because you don't take food home. You order the amount of food you want to eat there, and that's all you get. And take-home box is really uniquely American. But anyway, that's not my point. Instead, in the spirit of your T-shirt, I'll tell you, I wrote a Sunday post about a week and a half ago, and the name of the post was "I Love Cheetos," which is directly to your point. And what happened, Bud and I were working around the house late. We hadn't eaten all day. We had, split a bottle of wine, and we were starving. It was really late for us. And I didn't feel like cooking, and we're trying to figure out what to just snack on. And we had some bag of Cheetos that was about 10 years old in our pantry. I'm like, how about these Cheetos? And we started eating these Cheetos, and with the full recognition that there's probably even not a food, and you probably couldn't put anything worse in your body than a Cheeto. I don't even know what it is. It's some sort of flavored cardboard, but we were really enjoying eating the Cheetos. And it was a really good experience. And it struck me, and what I wrote in my post, David, is, look, Cheetos is probably illegal in half the world. And I don't even know it's not even a food group, but it's a brand that's been around for 30 years. People love. Or put differently, it's a really crummy product that people search out. And my point was, and it was your point, be whoever you're going to be it proudly. Whoever's looking for that will find it. That's all you got to be, is uniquely you. Be like Cheetos. They sell plenty of Cheetos, and they're unabashedly Cheetos, and it doesn't matter. I used another couple of product comparisons, but that's what you're saying, be you, let you sell. Don't try to be something else, Anyway, that's what struck me when you were talking.
Yeah. We've got a handful of people watching right now across all of our different social platforms. I'm curious, if you're a loan officer, a real estate agent, or in sales of any kind, and you're not using social media or posting for a business purpose consistently, why? I'm curious. Let me know. And what's up, Troy Rogers? Little early for a happy hour beer, but here we go, gentlemen, from Troy Rogers. But yeah, if you're a loan officer, real estate agent, or anything to do with sales, why aren't you using social media consistently for a business reason? Is it you just don't have time, you don't see the value, or you just don't feel comfortable and know what you're doing well enough? Let us know in the comments.
I'm actually more curious of your thoughts on Cheetos, quite frankly.
We're 5 minutes over. We should probably move on.
No, from the audience. Let me know. Is it crunchy, or I don't even know what those other things are. But anyway,
fun fact: McKenna eats Cheetos with chopsticks.
That's pretty wise.
It is, especially the flaming hot ones that are like it's more red than orange because they stain your fingers. And I tried it. I was like, that's kind of brilliant.
I love you even more, McKenna. Although I do have a little theory. People that eat all their food with a fork aren't probably my people. Like the people that eat like French fries with a fork, that like right there, I just know, okay, we're not a match. I was dating a girl once. We went out to dinner with her parents, and they're eating their, all their food with a fork. And I'm like, it's French fries and it's potato chips with a fork. Come on. I'm like, I'm not going to fit in this family. Let's cut this off.
Troy Rogers says, only flaming hot Cheetos, only flaming hot. Let's move on to, let's move on to our first topic. Love expressed as capital. Ron, lead the way.
I love that. And you know what? It's a deceptive title because it's really about this wealth transfer. And as I mentioned at the show open, $124 trillion of wealth is going to transfer in the next, that's trillion, by the way, in the next, 20 years, and of that, about 105 trillion is slated to be through inheritance or through family. Um, and so the question is, what's that matter? How's that matter to us in mortgage and real estate? And what can we kind of get from that? And McKenna, I don't remember our slide order. If you want to just rotate. Yeah, perfect. So here's what's happening. Because families are living longer and longer and longer, the inheritance is getting pushed out. And as Bill Perkins wrote in Die with Zero, by the way, a phenomenal book. I thought I'd hate that book. I love that book. Rated as one of my top 5 books last year. But Die with Zero is like, people now, inheritance is totally screwed up because the average age of receiving inheritance is 66 years old. But the highest age of need is 30 years old. And that directly applies to us. Inheritance, largely family gifting happens to help people buy homes today, right? But if you're withholding that money that for inheritance, so that you have a bigger bag of gold to give your kids, by the time you give it to them, the average age is 66. They're already financially secure. They're already set. That money doesn't mean that much to them. But a far smaller amount that can get them over the hump to home ownership when they're 30, that can then compound over 5 decades, means exponentially more. And that's why it's really important. And that's why I continue to argue that, if a really good plank in the mortgage business is generational wealth transfer. If you go out there and you educate all generations, especially older generations, how they can start to use their real estate and capital to, in a tax advantage way, pass on their estate, that you can really be successful, because there's just so many older generation people today. But let's keep going to the next slide. And David, I'll have you guys jump in a second. As McKenna, get ready. You're jumping in on this. So this whole part we talked about with Die with Zero, one of those things is, if we proactively go out there and we do generational wealth transfer seminars, and we partner with estate planners and attorneys and CPAs, all the necessary professionals, but we teach older generations the most effective way to transfer that wealth, right? That we start to change when that happens. And I want to just a couple other data points, David, and then I really want to get the soft side of this conversation with you and McKenna. McKenna, let's go to the data points, please. So here's a couple things. This is how, this question is, do you feel financially independent from your parents, right? Just generally to all generations, how do you feel financially independent, right? And the blue one is the only one that matters. In my mind, I put fully independent and not applicable in the same boat. And the reason why, if you look at boomers, 53% say that they're financially independent, but 30% said it's really not applicable. In my mind, that 30% is not applicable is on Social Security or in assisted living that the government's paying for. And so why they're not independent, their parents aren't paid for it. So that's what that means. With younger kids, it's probably kids that have scholarships in college, why they're not independent, but their parents aren't paying for it. So that's the green and the purple. So let's just concentrate on the blue. The blue is the amount of people that are getting support from their parents, right? So Gen Z comes in at a whopping 72% of Gen Zers today are getting support, financial support from their parents. That's 42% for all age groups. And even boomers, 17% are still getting support from their parents. That is a crazy number. And let's stop there before we even get to a more crazy number on the next slide. Dave, McKenna, what do you guys think about this number? These numbers, I should say.
McKenna, you weigh in on this one.
I mean, to me, the thing that shocked me the most.
Did you guys go quiet? Because I can't hear you, McKenna.
You can't hear me?
I can
David,
hear McKenna.
I can't hear either one of you. It must be me.
Yeah. Why don't you jump off, Ron, real quick and come back on?
I'll see you.
Ron will be right back.
That's strange. No, but I think for me, the thing that shocked me the most was that there were boomers dependent on their parents. Because whenever I first heard that, whenever I saw dependent, I thought maybe that means they're dependent on their children, but apparently no. It's that they're dependent on their parents, which is crazy to me. I mean, Gen Z doesn't really surprise me. I think it's pretty common, especially like in my friend group. I mentioned this last week or the week before, but out of all of my friends that aren't married, the ones that are not married live with their parents.
Ron, are you back?
Yeah, I think somebody from the health industry heard my talk on Cheetos and cut me off.
Hey, real quick, your brother Ron wants to know what book that was that you mentioned.
Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. It is a phenomenal book. And I thought I was going to hate it because I thought it was going to be about spend everything you have and live in the moment. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with live the best life possible. And it was a great book.
All right.
All right. David, did you have any comments while I was gone? Or are we ready to go to the next slide, which is even more crazy?
I think we're ready.
All right, next slide. Here's the next slide. I'm going to give you the bottom line. You guys don't have to look at the slide, even though producer McKenna made a beautiful little slide. Here's the gist. Roughly 20% of all people in the United States think they'll never be financially independent from their parents. 1 in 5. Bless you, David. 1 in 5. Is that a crazy number? Like, David, when you were 18 or when you were 30 or you were 50, did you go, I will never be financially independent? And maybe it's just because of the wealth that the older generations have accumulated now. That's why that's coming up. But I just find that striking.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I wonder what, I guarantee these numbers would be drastically different if you polled people 20 years ago, you know?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Drastically.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. So, but the whole point is there's a massive wealth transfer, whatever the number is, and real estate plays a big role in it. You know, I did an article, I want to say a year ago, and I talked through a whole bunch of different vehicles on how to do wealth transfers and what to pay attention to and how to use different estate plans and trusts. And it was researching for that paper was fascinating how many options there are to transfer wealth as a tax strategy and to get your kids ahead. It's just fantastic. So really interesting.
Yeah, I think McKenna's going to show a comment on the screen if you can, McKenna. This is a good question right here. What say you, Ron?
This is Mike. Thank you for that question. This is such a good question because it was in my notes to bring up. It's like you did show prep with me and you weren't even there, and I was. But you know what, Mike? Today, parents see people helping their kids buy a home is as important now. It's even to helping them with their college expense. And by the way, college used to be like on the mountaintop by itself, but now home ownership is equal in the parents' mind of helping them. Furthermore, half of parents today thinking helping their kids buy a house is more important than sending them to college. Half of them. Mike, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. What are the numbers for college attendance these days compared to 5-10 years ago? Is it dropped dramatically?
I don't know, David, but I don't think so.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it hasn't been dropping somewhat.
We can riff about college anytime because I have a ton of opinions on college and the future of state, but we'll put that on another show. Right? You know, by the way, Mike usually this. You know, Mike. See what Mike's asking really bright questions in the question box here, and he's texting me questions like, "Are you really drinking this morning at 8?" You know, and I'm like, "I'm a professional. What are you challenging my professional standards here?"
Just don't let your doctor see this podcast.
Oh yeah, Cheetos and drinking beer at 8. As a matter of fact, I probably shouldn't let my wife see it either.
You've got a busy weekend coming up.
Yeah, started now. All right, let's go to the next topic.
All right.
All right, I love this. So there was a few articles, and I want to say one was Bloomberg or it was Wall Street Journal, essentially, and you know, Wall Street Journal's headline, and this was from just 2 weeks ago: a risky unconventional mortgage is on the rise again. Essentially, is what it said. And Inman article had a title: "Lenders are loosening standards." But some analysts aren't alarmed. And what they're talking about is non-QM. And at first, you know, so in non-QM, alternative income verification accounts now for 6% of all loans done, 6%. And which is growing. It was gone from 3% in 2022 to 6% in 2026, which isn't a huge percentage. the vast majority of unconventional loans, not QM, but unconventional loans, 75% of them are just jumbo loans. They're just non-conforming loans. The 25% are these non-QM loans, and of the non-QM loans, something like 70% of them are for investors, for mom and pop buying, investor non-occupied properties, and they're using the cash flow of the property to qualify, and so they're using an alternative loan. But so these articles, there was a handful last week, were like, man, here we go again. It's 2008 all over again. It's Nina, it's no-nos, it's no income, no assets, no money down, interest only. And in fact, in both articles, they were both okay articles. They weren't completely slanted. In the Inman article, the author speculated, hey, you know what? I mean, these hybrid arms, these alt A non-QM hybrid arms that have interest only features, if they're on a 7-year, they're going to come up due here in a year, and these people are going to go from like a 2% interest rate that's interest only to a fully amortized 7% rate, and their mortgage payments are going to triple, and they're going to go into foreclosure, or there could be a wave of foreclosure. And when I was doing research, less than 1% of the non-QM loans that were originated had an ARM and an interest only feature. So it's minuscule to even begin with. But the point of my argument on social media this week was, look, it's never been about the ability to pay. And today, this is what none of these articles talked about. Not one of those articles had the phrase ability to repay. None used the word ATR, right? They're like, they're using, because all non-QM is an alternative way to confirm income, or an alternative way to verify the borrower's ability to repay. It's not ignoring that. It's just an alternative way. You're using bank statements and trended income analysis and stuff like that, right? And so, but that doesn't make it riskier by nature. And in fact, the average FICO score on a non-QM loan is something like 760. It's like super high. It's like 40 points higher than the average credit score for other loans. The average down payment for a non-QM loan is 25%. So they have a high FICO score, they have more down, all right? And you verify their income, just not through a W-2, tax transcript, right? It's just, that's not how you do it. And so what I argued is, hey, these non-QM loans are probably they're probably more secure, certainly than an FHA loan with 3% down, with somebody that has 45% back end ratio and no payment shock and gift funds. I mean, and so these loans are going to perform better. And in one of the articles, it might have been the Wall Street Journal article, that they said that the delinquencies are increasing in non-QM, and as our defaults. And I argue that has nothing to do with the type of loan it is. It has everything to do with when the buyer bought the house. Because here's the real fact: where the risk is in the collateral, not in the qualifying. Today, now 2007, different story, but today the risk is in the collateral. And so let's say you bought a house, somebody sold you, date the rate, marry the house in 2023. Woohoo! This is be good time. They're going to refinance you, and you're going to save thousands, and you can afford this. And then all of a sudden, and houses always go up. So you buy your house for $500,000, and today it's worth $450,000 in some markets, right? Well, you're upside down. Let's say you put 5% down. You're upside down and you're struggling with the payment. Your best strategic option may be to walk away, regardless of how you qualified for the home. This is what people, in 2008, when there was all this criticism about people that walked away from their homes with, foreclosures and whatnot, they were simply mimicking what businesses do every day, all day. Brookfield has defaulted on hundreds of properties that didn't pencil out anymore. It's part of their business plan. They make a business plan on whether they're going to pursue that, continue to keep that property or not. Well, this is what's happening now. We have a whole bunch of people that are upside down in their houses, people that bought since end of 2022. And some of them may make the choice, hey, I'm not going to sit with this negative equity. I'm going to ditch it. But the whole point is, it wasn't their ability to qualify. It was the value of the collateral. That's what's most important. And that's what I argue. Dave, what's your thought on this?
I had a thought come to me during this, but it's not quite related to the topic. But as I'm sitting here listening to you, I think about people like McKenna, or people that, well, McKenna's now been listening to the jargon, the mortgage and housing jargon. But I think about your everyday, this person off the street, when we've thrown out terms like non-QM or non-qualified mortgage, or a conventional loan, non-conventional, FHA, USDA, 203K. And I think the entire mortgage industry as a whole should hire Little Nessie to rebrand, because it can be so confusing for your everyday person off the street. Like when you hear non-QM, non-qualified mortgage, if you don't know anything about the mortgage world, you're like, I don't want a I want my mortgage to be qualified, not non-qualified, and so I just think about how confusing the terms, and it's okay for us to talk about it on this show because most of our audience are in the mortgage or real estate world, but it's impressed upon me to kind of remind people, if you are posting on social media, when you are talking to borrowers, and if you've been a loan officer for any kind of time and you're successful, then you probably already do this, but to dumb that language down. But yeah, I think that the mortgage industry as a whole should chip in, hire Little Nessie to rebrand the mortgage industry and the terms we use to simplify it a little bit.
Well, let's get Bill Pulte on the line. Let's see if we can pitch him.
Yeah.
David, the thing about non-QM, you know what it means? It means it doesn't meet the standards of safe harbor. And safe harbor is a presumption of essentially of innocence, a presumption that you did everything right in the loan, right? And so when you go no non-QM, you no longer have that presumption or that safe harbor, which means lenders have to actually, as Troy said in the comments, lenders actually have to ferret out that borrower that much more, because if they make an error, they can actually get stuck with the loan or have to pay the borrower back for the interest they paid and not, seek recourse on them. It's actually a much higher standard than safe harbor and a qualified mortgage, which is so weird. And so the media gets this totally wrong. I cannot believe even like reputable institutions like Wall Street Journal doesn't understand ability to repay. I mean, it was just amazing that didn't come up. But anyway, I think we got this.
Yeah. One more comment for McKenna to show, and I'm looking in our show chat. McKenna was like, I have no idea what and most of those words mean. They mean nothing to me.
Are you guys talking about headsets? I want a headset if you guys are talking to headsets. Come on.
No, it's in our show chat. We can see comments that come in publicly, and then me, you, and McKenna have a private chat where we can send each other notes. But you want to respond to this, Ron?
I apparently have a little work to do here, so I don't even know what you're talking about. All I do is see you. That's why I was saying, Troy, you're exactly right. As I just mentioned, it's a much higher bar to do a non-QM loan, even though it's an alternative verification process. It's a higher bar because that lender is risking a lot more to do it, and they're not going to take that risk if it wasn't worth it for them. So I completely agree.
All right, let's move on.
I think in the Inman article, they use an example was a real estate agent, because real estate agents are 1099 and they front load a bunch of expenses, real or imagined. And so they have a hard time qualifying for homes, but a DSCR loan helps them qualify all the time, doesn't make them less qualified. It was an interesting article.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. This one, we're talking about buy versus rent.
This argument drives me bat crazy. This is bat banana crazy. It does, David. We talk about it all this time. But here's what happened. There were two articles this week. The first one that really kind of chapped my hide was from The Hill. And it was, don't buy the hype. Homeownership usually is not such a great deal. And it was from some professor of analytics or something like that. I think from Liberty University or some university. I don't remember which one. And she really argued against it, incorrectly against rent versus buy. And even the Zillow report, which was trying to be defensive, didn't really help the argument at all. And here was the problem, especially with the Hill article. This is from an academic professor. She was comparing the cost of renting to buying today. It's better to buy. But there's no timeline horizon on that. And there's all sorts of reasons why I argue why she's wrong. But one of the reasons is she goes, well, gee, look, rents today, our total housing costs on rents are, say, $2,000 or $1,500, and total housing costs on buying is $2,500. Of course, it's better to buy or rent. But what she's not paying attention is that there's a crossover line at some point. See, because when you get a 30-year fixed rate loan, your principal and interest stays the same every month. But if you're renting, your rent is going up every year. And so at some point, that whatever the savings you think is, and what she said is like, if people just took the money that they are wasting, on mortgages and they went and invested it in a high yield investment, then they'd be far richer at the end of their lives. Well, of course, there's a few flaws. The first flaw is that people don't do that over and over and over again. It's why something like 75% of the people at death, their only asset is their house, their only meaningful asset, because it was a forced savings account. So she's saying, well, let's just ignore all that. And you know what? Really, if you just did this, if you put all this extra money into a really high yield account, you'd be richer. Yeah, well, that's a lot of ifs there, ma'am. Second, okay, let's say you're saving $1,000 a month renting today versus buying in your area, which I don't believe. Like when I do rent surveys, like you go rents in like San Diego, like to rent a nice place is like $4,000 a month. You can buy a decent house for that. So I don't agree with the whole rent buy premise anyway. I'm starting to get on a rant, David. I'm sorry. But to continue, at some point, when you own a house, the payment over time is going to come cheaper than the rent that's increasing every year. And what the Zillow article did, their analysis is that break-even point, that crossover point, is at 6 years. So after 6 years, now it's cheaper to own a home. And by the way, for the next 24 years, it will be cheaper to own a home. And that price savings gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year. Now, I will say on the Hill, that lady, the comments were ripping her apart for the most part. And when the most common comment was, yeah, lady, whatever you're saying, I own my house free and clear. How does that compare? Right? Because after 30 years, if you don't refinance or take cash out, you own it free and clear. Period. Right? Now, how does that compare to paying rent that's been going up 4% a year for the last 30 years? It's like the stupidest argument. And then furthermore, let's just say that I'm really picking up speed now here, David. Now, let's just say that, okay, I'm going to take my savings. I'll put them into a high yield return. It's going to be great because you know what? I can't figure out how to buy a house, but I can figure out how to master the stock market. So I'm going to look at these great returns, right? But here's the deal, David. Very few people, less than something like 1/10 of 1%, buy stocks or bonds on margin, right? So you invest $1, you get $1, right? And so let's say you invest $1 and it has a 20% yield, right? You just got 20 cents back. You now have $1.20. That's great. But let's say that you want to invest that same dollar in real estate. Well, the average down payment right now is about 13% or 15% or something like that. So you're going 8-to-1, right? That's leverage, 8-to-1. So let's say average real estate now appreciates 5% a year. Let's just pretend 4 or 5% of the market. Well, I have an 8-to-1 return. So on my dollar, I got a 5% return, but it's leveraged. So I really got 40 cents on my dollar back. I had a 40% yield, right? A 40% yield. Like, I don't understand how these people don't understand leverage. Like they pretend like that's not a real thing at all. And I did one of my favorite articles on LinkedIn a few months ago, about 6 months ago, and it was the 10 financial benefits of owning a home. Like it was like the 10 irrefutable financial benefits of owning a home. And I put a link to it in my most recent article on this rent versus buy argument. But there's all these great reasons that make renting so much better. The other thing, of course, you're buying a house today in real dollars and you're paying your mortgage in future years in inflated dollars, which erodes the cost of that payment. Furthermore, I mean, I could just keep going on. I go through all 10 and bore the hell out of you. But these arguments and really the core of my argument back was, look, they're arguing 2 of the main components out of 10. If you use all 10, it's not even close. I actually got in a conversation in social media last month with I really like this economist. I really like this person. I follow them. I promote their stuff. And they wrote an article why it was essentially, investing in the stock market always has higher returns than owning a home. And I made the same arguments made here. I'm like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Like really, how many people buy stocks on margin, dude? Because that's what you do when you buy a house, right? And then furthermore, I was further arguing, right? That, hey, lady, you don't have to put 20% down because in our example, she's doing 25% down. I go, you can put 5% down. You can put less down. And then, you have to take into account, if you only put 5% down, and so you maintain 15% of that, you can invest that in those same high yield investments you're talking about. See how this works? I don't think she engaged with me, by the way, even though I tagged the heck out of her. But David, I'll quit ranting and get your view on this.
No, the thing that jumped out to me as you're ranting there, Ron, is just in her article, the lack of discipline that I think most people have. is the point that just negates her whole argument. Because sure, are you going to get a higher yield return investing it wherever? More than likely, yes. But people don't have that. It's way more risky. Number one. Number two, if you're an amateur or not a pro, and that buying a house is almost like a forced for retirement plan. Because I think just most people don't have the discipline or the knowledge to be able to uh, put that money to good use more so than it could in buying a house. So I think that's bad advice for most people. Maybe for other people, great advice, but for the majority of us, I think bad advice.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of reasons to rent, especially if you're not going to be in the house long term. That's a good reason, right? But
Sure.
she was comparing yield, and she wasn't understanding. You're talking apples yield, and I'm talking oranges return on investment. Like they're different things, right? And you're playing checkers right now, which I don't understand. The other thing, which she addressed right off the beginning of her article, which is really interesting. She goes, there's this statistic that you get, thrown in your face every day, every paper, that homeowners are 40 times, wealthier than renters. She goes, while that is true, but that doesn't necessarily mean home ownership creates wealth. Just probably people are more inclined to create wealth by houses, was her argument. So the cause and effect is weak, right? And so she goes, those people are more likely to earn more, save more, have more disciplines, all that kind of stuff. They buy houses, but if they didn't buy a house, they would still create wealth because that's their habit. Well, that makes a whole lot of sense since 67% of Americans own a house. Like, okay, so just the 33% the renters are dumb. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even, you're talking nonsense, ma'am. Anyway, sorry, I'll quit ranting.
You want to respond to this one? So Troy was saying that the upfront cost can be a big barrier in that with the whole rent versus buy. But what do you think about this one, Ron?
I totally accept that. So, Troy, the question is: would you take that deal if you were in that environment? Would you buy the house or would you rent? And I would argue, and I know you would too, by the way, Troy. I know this. Every day to Sunday, I'd take the $3,000 rent today. I mean, home ownership today, and over time, I will be 40 times further ahead than that renter, for all the
Right.
reasons we talk about. And not to mention, we're not even talking about the whole quality of life. Like I own my own home, I control my environment, I'm king of my castle. Like there's a lot of value there. But financially, Troy, I know you agree with the same. You put in the comments. I would pay $3,000 to buy a house, the first $2,000 to rent. 100%. And not to mention, by the way, part of that payment is principal. And so at the end of 30 years, you own the principal. Like after 30 years of renting, you got butt kids. All you got is now probably in 30 years. In this example, I know, Troy, you agree with me, so I'm not arguing with you. But in 30 years, what do you think that rent payment is? $8,000 a month, $10,000 a
Mhm.
month, right? In 30 years, what's your housing payment? Zero. I mean, you have taxes and insurance, zero. I mean, pretty much zero, right? All right.
Yeah, and a lot of people might look at it and say, "Well, I can't afford 3,000. I can only afford 2,000 a month." So then get a house that you're paying 2,000 a month on, and make that sacrifice now for the benefit later.
Yeah, and Mike in the comments says here, comments are you're spot on, and this was in my article that I did this week on rent versus buy. Another thing, and Mike, you're going to draw me back into my rant. I'm trying not to go through all 10, but I'm going to. No, the other thing is, okay, I'm married, I own a home. Gosh, I'm so lucky. I went from 500,000 to $1 million. I just earned $500,000. Okay, how much tax am I going to pay on that capital gain on that $500,000? Miss, whatever, what is her name? Let me look up her name so I can speak to her directly. Miss Servert Capito from or Liberty. Let's call it. This was Liberty. All right, Liberty. I just earned. I got $500,000 in appreciation. I'm going to sell it. What's my capital gains? I'm married. What's my capital gains? Zero. Oh, it's zero. Really? Okay. I'm a genius, man. I'm great. I bought. I don't know what it is. I bought Nvidia stock 5 years ago, or I bought Bitcoin at 50 cents, and I just earned $500,000. What's my tax on that? Oh, 20% and going up, not to count state capital gains? Huh. Wow. I wonder how that impacts the return. Anyway, I'm sorry. I could do this, David. I could rant on this all day. Thank you. But let's go.
I say I say so. That's it for our main topics, where we usually spend 8 to 10 minutes. We've got three rapid fire topics. We'll try and hit these in 3 to 4 minutes. But where's the AI job crisis?
Yeah, this is I love this, and the point here isn't the point. And here's the deal: we have all these headlines. As a matter of fact, most recently, in the last couple of weeks, we've had different news headlines saying essentially, the tech sector is laying off an aggregate of 123,000 people, right? And that's what we heard last year, right? And David, you and I talked about. Heard this last year. Alphabet is laying off 25,000 people. Intel is laying off 30,000 people. Whatever it is, like we hear these doom, right? And so I did some interesting research on last year's hiring, and you can look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and all these companies announcing these layoffs. Like, let's take, which one do you want to take? You want to take Fate? Which one do you want to take, David? Last year, the one that who struck you the most of having layoffs?
I think Amazon.
Okay, let's take Amazon. Okay, and David, we did this on another show, so you know the answer. Let me ask you. So Amazon announced 30,000 layoffs last year, right? And it was, dominated the news for like a quarter. No, doomsday and AI is ruining jobs, it's taking them all away. All right. So let me ask you, David, at the end of 2025, did Amazon have more employees at the end of the year or less than the beginning of the year? Substantially more. Every one of these news in the headlines, these companies in these headlines that are saying layoffs, I promise you, last year they ended the year with more employees, and this year they're going to end the year with more employees. And you go, gosh, why do you care, Ron? Like, why do we care whether these are true or not? Well, because our customers, our clients, the people that want to own a home, that are thinking about it, are sitting in front of the TV watching CNN or whatever they're watching, and doom, AI is going to take your job, and all these layoffs, and oh my God, the economy is so risky, and man, everybody just bunker down. We're all going to go to hell in a handbasket. And that's the news all the time, which has no basis in reality, right? And so what we're creating is this vibe out there, right? And we talk about the vibe session all the time, like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my job, and all these layoffs, and the robot's gonna take over for me, and oh my God, and and the rates are high, and inflation, and right? When most of them can qualify for a home, and buying a home is the most responsible thing for them to do. And so I've argued, and I know we talked about this last week, one of the greatest skills as a loan officer or a real estate agent you need to gain today is how to counsel your potential customer, your client, through that vibe. That is the most important thing you can do. Go, look, you see these headlines, all these layoffs, it's hogwash. All these companies are going to be hiring people. What they're doing is they're getting rid of the people that drive the horse buggies, and they're hiring people that drive the race cars. That's all they're doing. It's happened through the history of mankind. But technology and change, innovation drives employment, period. There you go. Another little mini rant. I crammed that into like 3 minutes though, David.
I think we're seeing more of a job evolution than job eliminations, because the employment numbers are pretty low right now, right? Comparatively, or
Unemployment's
unemployment.
great. We're at
Right.
4.3% unemployment rate. There, you know what now, David? We just crossed the threshold that there are now more job openings than people seeking jobs. That's one of the things you look
Yeah.
at. And we've crossed I think, do we actually have a chart on this? So I don't even have to say this from memory. Producer
We've
McKenna,
got
do we
two
have that
slides.
chart from Torsten's Lock? I think we do. Right there, David. See, you just said that. See that line right there. This is Dr. Torsten's Lock. I love, as you know, and so we just crossed the 1.0 threshold. So there's now more jobs than people looking for jobs. That's what that means, right? And which is great. And so he's arguing, where the hell is the apocalypse with all these AI-driven layoffs when we are building jobs right now? Like, what are they talking about? And there's a thing called Jefferson's rule. Do you know what that is, David? Jurgensen's. I might be saying this. Here's what it is. As a thing gets cheaper, people want more of it, right? So as something gets cheaper, right, people want more of it. And the demand then, like this happens, I'll give you a really good example. Look, in radiology, AI is better at reading, CAT scans than humans, or radiology is better at reading, x-rays than humans, which is true, by the way. But you know what? Since they've added AI to radiology positions there's far more of them. There's like 50% more radiologists, and they get paid 50% more. You know why? Because as they got cheaper, more people got them, right? Like think of a whole body scan. Whole body scan used to be like $20,000. You can go get it done for like $300 today. When it's $20,000 going to get it done? No. If it's $300, would you do it? Possibly. So the demand at the lower price, right? At the lower price, demand rises faster than the technology replaces the labor. Very interesting principle, and it's proven out every day. Anyway, I think we got this. I'll quit ranting.
Yeah.
But
Let's move on to the next. Rapid fire. The market is adapting.
Yeah, this is another really good one. And we stole this, all truth, we stole this image from Housing Wire. So sorry, Clayton. But it's a really interesting thing. And here's what we're going to say. And I don't even remember what our slides are on this, but here's the gist of this, David. We are in a super normal market right now. Interest rates are, 50 basis points below their historic norm. Employment is solid. Home sellers have started to figure out how to price their homes. So there's fewer price reductions. There's fewer than there's been in quite a few months. Far fewer transactions are falling out of escrow. So we're just in a really healthy, normal, balanced market. So that's the first mindset you have to get. A really healthy, normal market, right? We're used, our buyers, homeowners are now used to that 6.5% interest rate. So there's no more, sticker shock. There's pent up demand. It's all good. It's all good market, right? But here's the thing, and here's a hidden signal in this, and I'm almost, I almost want to stake my, put my stake in the ground on this. We might be at the bottom of the housing market right now, meaning that we might be entering into it's hard to tell because there's world wars and there's all sorts of problems and we have craziness in our government, but we might be at the very bottom of the housing market, which means we might start to see home prices start to appreciate and then appreciation accelerating. We're going to continue to see wealth growth in the economy. And it's very likely that as this housing market starts to heat up, and this is where the whole vibe is so wrong, as it heats up, that's when your buyers start to get FOMO and they start to make really stupid housing decisions, right? But if I was out there, if I had a whole bunch of clients, I would send a newsletter. We may be at the very best you're ever going to see for the market. This might be as low as interest rates are going to get. This might be as low as house prices are going to get. This might be as much inventory as you're going to see. This might be the period with the least competition you're going to have, because probably in a few months, it's going to heat up. Competition is going to go up. Prices are going to go up. Very likely interest rates are going to go up. And so I would just be gently pushing my clients, hey, I just want you to consider this. I know there's a whole lot of noise out there, like for these, layoffs, but I wanted just you to consider this, that we might be at the best spot for housing today. And that was the whole point of this topic. I like that.
Good. Ron, Troy had a really good question on our last segment, right when we were finishing up, but I think it's good enough that we should loop back to it. It's a question about Barry Habib's perspective. That I don't watch as much Barry Habib these days as I used to, but what are your thoughts on this, Ron?
Yeah, I've listened. Thanks, Troy. I've listened to Barry pound this home. But the thing is, Troy, Barry's using one survey. He's using the inputs from one survey. When you really look at employment, you can look at a dozen different metrics on how they get to the unemployment numbers. And some of the other surveys do a much better job of screening out duplicates, because they're not just doing it from, classified job ads, they're doing it from employer surveys and other things. And so when you look at some of the more reliable surveys, the fact is that employment is really strong. So that's where or put differently, Barry is handpicking the data point that serves his argument while ignoring better data points. That's what I would say.
All right, let's move on to our last rapid fire topic. It's another one where we're talking about AI. Ron?
Yeah, this is AI in the mortgage industry, if I remember right. We gotta get the hooks up, tell us what the topic is. But this is talking about AI in the mortgage industry and just how deeply embedded it is. But not only how embedded it is, but how the trend is increasing. So let's just get to the data, and then I'll make one or two observations and get yours, David. All right. So here's the thing. 3 years ago, about 15% of lenders said that they were using AI, and now, and then it was 37% 2 years ago, and it was 60% this year. So that's just the trend, right? Now, here's the other thing. This is let's just get to the data. I'm going to look at the charts instead of read it for you, McKenna, if that's okay. We're going to pivoting well. All right, let's look at. So here's the thing. So you can barely read this, but in 2023, something like 15% of companies said they were using AI, and then you can see going down to this year, it's 20. I can't. I can't read that, mechanic, because it's so small. But that's not your fault. That's my problem, not your problem. What? Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Watch this, guys, so I can read the chart. So now that number is 60%. So we've gone from 15 to 60%. That's pretty good. Let's look at the next chart, because we're going to actually get to an interesting data point. Hang on with me, everybody, once I can read these. Now, this is what's really interesting too. So the yellow is what's your expectation that you're going to increase, AI or ML, machine learning. And so you can see how it's increased, right? What you can't see on this chart in 2023 and 2024, there's a light green section that says they expect their AI to decrease. And so in 2023, it was an insignificant group said, we actually think our AI use is going to decrease. And 2024 is a smaller section said, we think it's going to decrease, not increase. But last year, not one lender surveyed, not one lender in the survey said, we're probably going to use less AI, meaning that it's so ingrained now, every company is racing to try to implement it or inject it into their operating systems. So I thought that kind of was interesting. Let's go to the next. So Dan, what do you think about that before we go on?
It just makes me think about how long people have been debating about the use of AI, or, AI yes or no, and so on. So the debate's over about whether it's coming or will it play an instrumental role. It's now the debate is the competency, and who's going to be better at it than others, and so on. So
Yeah, you know what's interesting, David, and we took this slide out, but because I think it made a lot of sense to a lot of people. But what they had in here is what has been the evolution away from RPA, which is robotic processing, right, to the evolution to growing AI. And here's what it used to be: what people think is AI is 90% not AI. OCR is not an AI. Robotic engineering, like that, says like, okay, take this number, from box A of a tax return and put it in this field in Compass. There's no AI to that, right? I mean, that's just robotic processing. That's all it is, right? And what it is computational rules. And so that's what people have seen as AI. But what they've said is the industry is getting away from RPA. There's less and less this rules-based, computing. And now they're starting to allow more artificial intelligence, where it's a subjective answer that's coming. And that's been one of the biggest evolutions, which is kind of interesting. But let's go to the next slide really quick. The top 10 live digital capabilities online. Oh, Mike, what's the singularity for AI?
I love this question.
That's very interesting. Yeah, Mike, that's the problem with singularity. So singularity is when the AI tool or platform has greater intelligence than the sum of all human intelligence. And so if we applied that to lending, it's going to have to be when AI can be empathetic with the borrower, have true emotion for the borrower, true concern and love for the borrower. That would be singularity. That may come, Mike, because so much of what we talk about, like where I'm saying, we got to evolve to being counselors to help people through the vibe and to get between their ears and help them make good decisions. And we need to know, their fears, and we need to understand it, and we need to, we need to help them with that. It's harder for a machine to do that. Like, Mike, the machine's going to have more knowledge than us already does on guidelines. It makes fewer mistakes. We talk about this all the time. Would you rather have a human, underwriter that's, let's say they've underwritten 1,000 loans in their career, or a AI machine that's been taught on 5 million loans? Like, which one's more likely to make an error? But when I sometimes I talk to loan officers and they ask me, "Oh my God, AI," and I go, I don't want to. I have a long list of things of how you beat AI, but all you have to do, really, Mike, to just prove this whole singularity point of that greater knowledge isn't human knowledge. All you have to do is go, across the table from a borrower, go, how does that make you feel, right? Because if ChatGPT said, how did that make me feel? I would feel like it's insecure and it's engineered. But if a human may ask me, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? Then I'd feel like I had human connection, and that I had some sort of emotional connection. And those are things that a machine can't do. But David, so we don't really care about the top live digital. All you need to know is that there's 10 functions that, most companies already use an AI on. But I do want to get to a couple of things. Let's go through, Michaela, let's jam through the charts. Yeah, let's skip that one. Here we go. We know it's all the stuff you expect. By the way, about almost third from the bottom was sales actually activities. Here, place areas that people are using AI the most in the mortgage industry. And by the way, this is from a Strathmore report. And this report has been locked behind a paywall, which you had to be a really high-paying customer to get. And they finally published some of the results, and it's a very extensive report. It's fascinating. It's in their insights, in the Strathmore Insights this month. So go check it out. That has a ton more data points I'm talking about. What's the next chart?
This is the last slide.
Oh, I had a bigger point on all this. uh, all right. Well, there you go. So I guess the key. Oh, I know what the other point was. Here's something else. Here's something really interesting. Now, let's say you're not an AI person. Like, you don't care. You just go out there and you're gonna go prospect and try to get a home buyer. And what you're feeling is that your company is most likely adopting AI through its vendors. Like your company's not an AI pioneer. You guys aren't creating your own chat bots or all this stuff. Instead you're going to vendors. A lot of marketing, David, that are putting AI into their product, into their system, just like we're trying to do, David. The same thing, right? And so that's how you're really being introduced to AI. But what was interesting is 50% of the respondents from medium and small IMBs are now getting AI products from third-party vendors, meaning not from their primary vendors. And here's what this means. And it's interesting. I was talking to Dave Savage about this the other day. We didn't have an argument, but it was a really interesting conversation. And I was like, well, you know what the Strathmore article theorized is because so many medium and small IMBs are going to third-party vendors to get more AI into their system. What they're essentially doing is they're forcing the big LOS providers to quit sitting on their laurels and drive better product, better useful product. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on those systems to actually grow faster. And put this into, I like to put this into perspective. When I was a loan officer in my early years, we used Point as our POS. They didn't really have LOSs for the most part. It was mostly POSs. So we used Point, and Point was great because it had no rules. There was no rules. I mean, you could put anything into a Point application and go, thank you. Like there was no like auditing or, hey, this doesn't make sense. You said one borrower makes 1,000 a month, the other borrower makes 2,000 a month, but you're qualifying on 10. Like they didn't care, right? But what happened? And so Point was like 65% of the marketplace when I was a young one, because it was one of the first really software products. And but what happened? You know what? They did about $0 in research and development. They never changed their product. And so as they stayed in the same place, and Encompass and Empower and all these places with these big engines blew past them, and then it looked like a stupid buggy and cart compared to these Ferraris. Well, that's LO systems still have that in their DNA. Like we're not going to spend $1 to get better because we have you trapped. Like, that's the thing, because that's what they call the moat, is the cost of changing vendors is the moat. But it's not only the real cost, but how much momentum, and you get all sorts of other sorts of breakage, right? And so like the Compass goes, we're so integrated into your life, you couldn't change from us if you wanted to. Like everybody would leave, right? Well, that wall is being torn down now because AI is quickly be able to do those integrations, so it's not such a big change. And now that you can get third-party vendors that have better product, it's really going to put pressure on LOS systems and start to actually improve their product, which is a good sign. I like that point from the author of that article. Anyway, that's my last point. That's the part I was forgetting.
Ron, can we get through our tech tip within 60 seconds?
I love this tech tip. I could have done this as my, from the gut. All right, let's do it. It's great because it follows this topic perfectly. I like this so much. I wrote a link. I maybe wrote a LinkedIn article. I think I did a LinkedIn post. I don't know, but it was such a good post. Let's go do it. And we had it on the schedule for the show last week, but we went long, so we cut it, and I forced it back on, David. So that's how much I like this. Let's get to it. Let's do the music. Cue the music.
The bumper.
All right. Well, David, what's the number one challenge for technology, any type of technology? Like what makes it succeed or fail?
Adoption.
Exactly, right? You could buy the best piece of software, piece of AI, piece of technology, and if nobody uses it, how much is it worth? Nothing.
Zero.
You just wasted your money, right? Or you get it and people, undermine it, they sabotage it, and they just say, you're stupid. Why'd you spend all this money on that technology? We could have just cut our rates. whatever the objection is, right? And so they fight it. Or even worse, you invest in technology that you don't trust, like, for example, automated underwriting. And so then you have the same underwriter that's supposed to replace, underwrite the file for safety, and now you just paid for 2 underwrites, not 1, right? So the question is, how do you get higher adoption? Well, I'll put it in reverse. What's the best way to explain the adoption wall? You know what it is? It's your upside can't be my downside if you expect me to help you with this adoption, right?
Mhm.
Your upside, the company's upside, automated underwriting. If I get automated underwriting, I have fewer errors. I can get rid of my underwriters, and the automated underwriting can work 24 hours a day. I don't have to pay them overtime. That's the company's upside. All right, I'm the underwriter. You want me to help you roll out this automated underwriting? Well, I'm on the downside, right? And if I'm on the downside, you know what? I now become your combatant on the rollout, right? So if you want to have an effective rollout, your upside can't be my downside. I love that, right? And so first we have a prompt here, and we have 2 prompts. Let's show the first one. This comes from an article in the Daily Neuron, a terrific AI newsletter. And what this says is, hey, what you do is you put this prompt into whatever AI tool is. And it says, hey, I'm considering an AI project. You describe the project. Then you create a stakeholder upside map with the columns. You go, hey, here's all my stakeholders, right? Let's say it's underwriters, processors, loan officers, list your company, right? And then you say, hey, who's going to gain if we roll this out? And you make the AI tool list by stakeholder who gains. And then you go, who's going to lose if we roll this out? And then what possible proof can I make them trust it? So it goes through these questions. It's telling you, look, your underwriters are going to push back if you roll out, automated underwriting, right? Makes sense, or automated processing, or sales bots, or whatever it happens to be, right? So it says before you invest in the technology, study this, run this prompt through your tool, right? And then the next prompt, the second prompt, which is just as strong, says, okay, once you, McKenna, Miss McKenna, hello.
We only have the one.
That's just this
Really?
one.
We only have the one?
We only
All
have
right. So the
one.
second prompt, which I thought we had, sorry, my error. So the second prompt is then have your AI tool build a selling point or defense that people most likely against it. So for example, the underwriter doesn't want to roll out automated underwriting because they think it's going to replace them. They think it's going to make errors and they're going to be responsible. And thinks it's because it's going to make them have to be, assistant to the automated underwriting. They think that they're going to have to, the underwriter's going to get stuck with all the crappy files. Automated underwriting can't do what all the reasons are, right? It's to identify. And then you go, well, then when you ask the tool, you go, how can I make this a win for my underwriter? How can I make them not only believe, but truly make it a win for my underwriter? So then when I go and talk to the people that are going to be most against it, I can go, hey, I understand you may think this is a downside for you, that you may be against this, but here's why it's an upside for you. And you go through, so you empathize with them. You say, I hear you, I feel you already. And then here's how I'm going to protect you. Here's where your upside. This is why I think you should align with us and get this adopted. I think it's brilliant. David, what do you think?
Even long before AI, AUS, when did AUS come out?
Automated underwriting came out around 2002, maybe the first. You know what? Countrywide actually created AUS through their clues, and then they sold that technology to Fannie and Freddie. Interestingly enough,
So
back around
was the
2000.
was the same argument being had then when AUS came out, just like it is now, where AI's more intelligent and gonna do more, but I can imagine the exact same conversation was happening back then in 2002 or before.
It was 100% the same conversation. Now, I will say today we have better evidence. United Wholesale Mortgage says they underwrite. Their average underwriter underwrites 30 files a day versus the industry average, which is less than 4. So we're actually seeing real scale and gains, 100%. Hey, I see a question from Mike. Mike, will Mello, that's Loan Depot's technology platform, become an independent LOS? That's a really good question. We always speculated that's why, Anthony was making it. But what's happened, Mike, and I think you'd agree if you were on, Mello is a far inferior proprietary origination system than a handful of other, players in the marketplace. Quite a few of the other players have well leapfrogged over what Loan Depot has. Not to say that now with Anthony being back and all those folks being back that they won't take a forward spot in the future. But I think there's less of a place for somebody like Loan Depot to light or any of Cross Country or Guild. They all have great origination systems now. Even NewRez. I don't mean to say even NewRez, but there's much less likely for them to do that. Instead, Mike, what would it be is a company that wants to get into the mortgage space, like a big company that wanted to get into the mortgage space. They needed to have a really solid tech platform. Think of somebody like Amazon. Think even in some cases, it used to be like Zillow, like a big monster, Apple. Instead of having to create their own platform, they would buy a company like Loan Depot so that they could use their platform and they can have kind of like the beginning of the manufacturing conveyor belt, I think. But so there you go. David, I can keep going if you want.
No, we're pretty far over in time. So let's call that a wrap. If you've joined us, we appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we'd appreciate it if you did that. Thanks to all the questions, comments. Troy, Michael, you guys were flooding our comment box, which we love. I think it improves our conversation. So if you've joined us, we appreciate it. And we'll see you next week. But we'll end with a cheers. So happy hour to you, Ron. And everyone watching, have a great weekend. See ya.
See you, everybody. Thank you.